So the first one we're going to get into is Frontier. Again, if you weren't here yesterday, or if you were here yesterday, we're covering multiple bills. We're breaking down some facts, some information per bill, and you guys can keep all the bills that I pass out. And I'll do this with that entire list of bills that we covered. So let's just see if we can keep that meeting going for a little while. Frontier is related to what company? Say it loud, say it proud, Chris.
Gexa?
You know Stewart?
Stuart Little or?
No, Stewart.
Oh.
So Stewart thought your name was Christoph because that's what I called you in front of him. So every single time he referred to you as Christoph.
Okay.
Isn't that funny? And I told you Stewart thought your nickname was Big Baby because that girl in Canterbury called you Big Baby.
God.
So then he called you Big Baby for a few days.
Never heard it.
That's because I told him, don't make sure he never hears you say that shit. So he did it. I did that pretty quick.
That's hilarious.
All right. Frontier is related to Gexa. Gexa and Frontier are basically the exact same company. You'll run into the same plans, and the bills will look identical. There might be a few other companies that are unrelated, but their bills will look similar. Just Energy bills actually share similar formats to other companies, although they are unrelated companies. There's like a default format, so you actually may run into 2 or 3 or 4 other companies that are completely unrelated to Just Energy that look exactly like a Just Energy bill. Same with Frontier, same with Gexa. You might run into a few that look the same. All right, so I'm going to kind of go through this just like we did yesterday. Total amount due, $235. Now, that doesn't really seem high. I'd say that's pretty normal. This is an August bill. Remember, if the bill is due in September, then the billing periods are likely sometime in August, right? So the last bill and the bills that we're getting now are going to be some of the highest bills that we've ever seen, or at least this year, because they're paying for what's left of August, September. Chances are we're out of September, or out of August, we're into September now. So keep in mind, as we covered yesterday, customers are paying for what they already used. They're not paying for the electric in advance. That would be called prepaid. Okay, so $235, not crazy. This isn't too high. I'd say this is about normal. Opening balance $240, payments received $240, and then $235. So their last month's bill was fairly similar. Okay, so their bill is pretty consistent. Average daily billed usage. There are a few companies that do this, and they're not putting the actual monthly usage on the usage report. They're putting the average daily usage. So you need to understand what that means and how that works if you're going to use this usage chart correctly. July, August. Let's use August because this looks like it's the closest one to 100. So let's say August they use 100. So based on this statement here, your average daily billed usage. This is saying that in August, they used an average of 100 kilowatts a day. Okay, so just for even math, let's use August as that example. So how much does that mean they're using for the month? On average, if they used 100 a day, 3,000. Okay, so does that make sense? I mean, I shouldn't have to give that example, but I'm giving it just so everybody understands, because I think sometimes we look at these things and we get confused. That's all that it is. So it's giving you, for the month, it's breaking down the average daily usage. So take that average, whatever number that you equate it to, and then multiply it by 30, right? And then that'll give you the general consumption for that month. But also note that it says this period billed usage. It'll show you how much energy they used for the period that you're looking at. And there's another place you can find that within the meter reads. I believe it's on here as well, and we'll look at that on the back. But this bill, they were charged for 1,500 kilowatts. Previous 10 months, so still in the usage chart, it also shows you a total, grand total, of how much energy they've used for the entire life of the contract, or up to 12 months. So previous 10 months, that means they've only lived there for 10 months, right? Okay, so in most cases, when you're looking at these usage charts, let's use TXU, for example, you see 3 bars, they've lived there for 3 months. They either just moved in or just switched to TXU, so make sure that you don't just assume one or the other. It could be either option. They either just moved in or they just switched from another company. But on here, you can either count the bars or you can see 10 months. So if it was 12 months, let's say they lived there for 24 months or 17 months, it's not going to say previous 17 months. It'll stop at 12, and it'll just be a rolling average for those 12 months consistently, right? But it does tell you if you want to also, if you can't figure this math out too quickly because it's confusing or you can't kind of figure out what these numbers are, you just do the math right here. 10 months, 13,000 kilowatts. Just divide one into the other. So what is that on average? 1,300 kilowatts a month. So you can do that too. So that's probably an easy way for you to compare what would it have been with Reliant versus what would it be with Frontier. So let's just say, for example, this was an easy plan and not a specialty program. So we're going off track, but let's just use this billing history as a way to prove value. So there are some companies that have the total for the annual on the bill. So let's just say that this rate was 15 cents. So let's just say that Frontier on this bill, they were in a contract. We've seen now that they've got this contract for 10 months, so we can do the math pretty easily. So let's say they were in contract, they were at 15 cents. What is 15 cents times 13,000 kilowatts? Can somebody do that for me?
It's about 2
How much?
About 2 it's 1995.9.
All right, so, well, can't see that. So about $2,000 you said?
Yeah.
Now, what is 11 cents times that same 13,000?
1463.
Okay. So if I needed to show immediate value, I can show, assuming that this was a fixed rate at 15 cents, not a specialty program, nothing fancy, I could just do the math really easily. I could use this usage chart, these 10 months, and this exact usage, and say, if you had had Reliant for the last 10 months, this is what you did, this is what you would have paid versus this is what you did pay. Now, keep in mind, this is just the supply portion of the bill. This math doesn't include Encore or any other additional fees. But this is a really good way if you needed to show value. Let's say you're losing the deal for whatever reason. Well, if the program allows it, you can just do the basic math. And there are companies that will put the annual consumption on the bill like this. Now, if this is a bill credit program, we probably can't do that math because it's a little bit, it would be inaccurate. And this is, in fact, a bill credit program. All right. So I don't think there's anything else on here, but I think this is good. That was all good for the usage chart. I think a lot of times we'll look at these bills and we're not getting everything out of the usage chart that we should be getting out of it. There's a lot that you can learn, so just take a second, look at the usage, identify what you can identify, and then move to the back of the bill. So let's go to page 2. So here it is on the back again. Every single bill will report. If you can't figure it out or if you don't see how much energy they're using for that billing period, you're going to see it in multiple places. Here it is right here, the usage, and here it is again right there. So here's your billing period, 8/21 to 9/20. Remember, 28 to 31 days. Here's your usage credit, $110. Now, normally they're $50 or $100 or $125. So this is a $110 credit. That means that they get the credit when they hit the threshold. What is the threshold? Well, we're not 100% sure. It could be 1,000. It's probably 1,000. But if we wanted to be 1,000% sure, we could just check the EFL. It's likely 1,000. But because it's 110, that's a little strange. Maybe it's 1,100. I don't know. And it didn't matter in this scenario. She didn't care, and I didn't care.
I was going to say that I actually signed up a GEXA plan that looked similar to this, and it was 1,000.
Yeah,
so.
and it was 110 credit?
Yes,
okay.
110.
So good to know then. Now, let's say this customer did not use 1,500, and they only used 900. You won't see, here's the tricky part for new people or just people in general, if you forget this, you won't see this. It won't be on the bill. So all you'll see is that rate of 16.2. So remember, you may close on the fact that they're being overcharged because you don't see that they have a $100 credit. But then they'll use that credit against you because they know about it and you don't. So you need to be prepared whenever you see GEXA or Frontier or For Change, be prepared that there could be a bill credit program associated with it. But if they don't hit it and it tells you that they didn't hit it, that's perfect. That's all the proof you need. Remember, you guys could say absolute gold, but if they don't believe you, it doesn't matter. So being able to show them on their bill with their name on it, their address on it, that they didn't hit it and they need to use a certain amount in order to benefit, and then you can flip it over, go back to the usage chart and prove to them that they won't hit that credit more than once or twice a year, then, I mean, you should absolutely have that deal. That should be 100% done. Less words, more visuals. So you can find that then at the bottom, and I'll see if I can pull up an example of it. All right, we got the energy charge. Actually, that's not a bad energy charge considering most of the time when I see bill credit programs, I'm looking at 18, 19, 20 cents. But 16 cents, they're charged 16 no matter what, whether they hit the credit or they don't. And if they hit the credit, it's applied automatically, and that will reduce a price on their bill. What's the price that it will reduce? The average. If you ever want to determine if a customer is using this plan correctly or not, just look at the average. 14 cents, that's the average. This average is cheaper than ours. So that average versus our average, what's our average? 16.5? So obviously they're 2 cents cheaper on this bill, okay? So again, in this scenario, if the customer were to do a comparison, our bill versus their bill, our bill would have been more expensive. Okay, now the reason this customer chose to do it is because they didn't like the idea that there could be a higher price or inconsistent bills and that they had to use more energy in order to get the benefit. A really good line that you guys can use for Gexa, for Change, Frontier is most people sign up because they think they're going to get the advertised price, and they didn't realize in order to get the advertised price, they have to use a perfect amount of energy. That line right there works every fucking time. Most people sign up, what, like 11 or 12? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, like 11.4 average.
Yep.
And they think that they're like, well, that's not what. Why am I still paying 22 cents or something?
Exactly. And so what I'll do is, and I'll use those numbers because most customers will agree with whatever information you give them. So you don't want to take advantage of that. But if you can give them a number that sounds accurate, then obviously you build credibility with that. So when I say, yeah, you probably signed up at like 11, or that's what you saw. That was the advertised price. Advertised as in they went online because that's where they signed up for this company. She's like, yeah, 11 something, 12 something. Yeah, that's what most people think. But what most people don't know, and I don't say what you didn't know, right? I'm including you when I say when most. Yeah, what most people don't know is the only way to get that good price, that advertised price, is you have to use a certain amount of energy. And unfortunately, you will likely not do that more times than you will, and you'll overpay. And that's where I might bring up, you thought you were getting 11 and you're at 14. Here's your energy charge. Here's your average. I might teach them something at that point as well. Because again, most people also don't know the differences. When you're able to teach people something instead of sell, that's really where you've kind of elevated your ability a little bit, because in that teaching, you are also selling. Right? And I think that's an important aspect of it. I'll give you a real good example. When I'm in orientation class, I'm teaching, but I'm also selling as well. I do both. I'm not selling as much as I am teaching, but because I am teaching, it makes people want things more often. And I bet anybody that actually pays electric in orientation class, I probably could sign them up if I wanted to. Because while teaching, they're learning, and in that learning, they're understanding their differences and the values between us and other companies or whoever they have. So if you find that you're overselling, dial it back a little bit and start teaching a little bit. You don't want to overteach either, because then that's talking too much. But I think that's a really good way to differentiate. Sometimes you got to teach instead of sell. And you know, we call it explanation, right? That's the explanation phase. But explaining something and teaching something are two very different things. When I get up here and I explain something, did I teach it to you? Do you understand it? That to me is what I would consider teaching. If you don't understand it, I'm just explaining it. If you do understand it, then that means I taught it and I taught it correctly, right? So there's a difference there between explaining and teaching. So we got the energy charge, keep going down. And again, all of this is familiar. You know what all of this stuff is. So I think the last thing to cover is the estimated contract. So if you forget everything we cover on every single bill, just try to remember two things. How do I identify what kind of plan they're on? and where's the expiration date. Those are the two things. Because everything else you guys can find and you can figure out. If for whatever reason you don't have a bill, you can do the math and you can figure out their prices, right? So you don't need a bill for that. But you probably can't accurately guess their expiration date or their plan. You can guess their plan by asking questions in a process of elimination, but that complicates things, right? You don't want to ask that many questions. So if you forget everything we cover, do your absolute best to remember where is the expiration date and how do I determine what kind of plan that they're on.